Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 98 of the Big Time Strength Podcast. Really excited today, bringing to you Coach Jim McGuire. He is the Director of Strength Conditioning at Fitchburg State. Great episode coming your way here. I'm really excited about it. Before we get to that, as always, I want to recognize our awesome sponsors on the show. First, we have TeamBuildr. They are the leading software for high schools and colleges, providing coaches the ability to write programs online, generate over 13 reports, and even train athletes remotely. If you sign up with code BIGTIME, you will receive a free APRU programming template, which works automatically within TeamBuildr. No more spreadsheets and workout cards to track training maxes that change day by day. Automate your programming without outsourcing your programming with TeamBuildr. You know, I talk about them a lot of time on the show. In their little line there, they say training maxes that change day by day, but I think a lot of us are figuring out, I think workouts are going to be changing day by day just in this COVID period. Athletes kind of going, hopefully not, but in and out of quarantine. And TeamBuildr is just so nice from that standpoint and being able to adjust workouts on the fly. Because if you're I don't know, if you're in Excel and you got your workout card that's a 4-week, 3-day perfect setup, I don't know, it's just going to change a lot, especially in this coming fall. So been thinking about it. I think TeamBuildr, they're there for you to help you out. Please check them out. They do, Hugh and his gang do an awesome job. Our second sponsor is Powerlift. They are the leading manufacturer and distributor of heavy-duty strength training equipment for collegiate and high school athletic performance centers around the world. They bring over 20 years of experience to the strength conditioning world. All products are manufactured in their state-of-the-art facility in Jefferson, Iowa. They are proud to support all coaches making the big time where they're at. Mike Richardson is the contact on the show notes, and please reach out to him if you have questions about any of their equipment or want to get something set up. Great sponsor, and really appreciate them supporting us small school coaches for sure. And then our last sponsor today you want to highlight is Evan Sports Performance and his progressive speed system. So if you're a strength conditioning coach who is struggling in the area of speed development, or if you wish you had a system to teach acceleration, multi-directional speed, using the weight room, or maybe you know a lot about speed and agilities but don't really know what the drills are supposed to be teaching your athletes. If you would like a system that allows you to plug in your favorite drills in a progressive way to allow you to slowly prepare your athletes to move better on the field, head over to evansportsperformance.com, and if you type in BTS 50, you'll get $50 off his progressive speed system. I know for me, my young development as a coach, I'm a systems guy, and I think most people have a pretty good system probably for how they categorize exercise and stuff in the weight room. When it comes to that field stuff, it's a little bit different. So check out him. Really excited to bring him on as a sponsor as well. All right, so guys, again, today I am bringing on Coach Jim McGuire, and I want to get to him. Before that, I just want to say I hope everybody's doing all right in this COVID period. I know as we're airing this, I think Coach will get into this, but his conference has kind of pushed stuff back. That's kind of happening everywhere right now, and I'm hoping, I know a lot of coaches are struggling with possible job security and stuff like that. So best of luck to everybody out there, and I hope everything turns out okay for everybody. But let's get today's show. I'm going to turn this over to Coach McGuire. Coach McGuire, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't you give us a little intro to maybe your background through strength conditioning so far?
Yeah, sure. So I think, like most coaches, I grew up playing sports, throughout my youth and into high school was playing sports all year long. I kind of had a different perspective. My dad was a high school and college football coach, so I kind of got to see a lot of that side of it. Grew up like through high school and even early into college, wanting to kind of teach and coach high school or small college football. Right around my sophomore year, I went to Plymouth State University up in New Hampshire, small Division III school. And around my sophomore year, I started realizing that, hey, you can make a living and a career out of being a strength and conditioning coach and working in the weight room with athletes, and kind of transitioned my coaching vision towards that. I played at Plymouth for a couple of years. I was okay as a player. Knew that I wanted to get into coaching. Ended up on the staff there actually as a junior and a senior, kind of just doing a little bit of everything to help the full-time coaches out. But one of the things I realized, along with, you can make strength and conditioning a career, is that I really didn't like watching film. So that's a major problem if you want to be a football coach. So right around that time, like I said, really kind of devoted all of my time and energy into learning the field and kind of what I needed to do and the steps I needed to take. When I graduated, I was lucky enough to get into Springfield College for grad school. So I did my 2 years there, was a graduate assistant my second year, had some awesome opportunities to do some great internships at UConn with their football program in the late Jerry Martin. Then I went down to the University of South Carolina, worked with football there for a summer, came back in GA'd, graduated Springfield, and then my first job was at Merrimack College. I was a restricted earnings, I think officially part-time assistant there. After my first year, elevated to full-time, spent 2 more years there. Then I was lucky enough to get a job at the University of Delaware as an assistant strength coach. Spent 2 years down at University of Delaware, and in the spring of my second year, found out my wife was pregnant with our first kid, and we're both from up here in Massachusetts, so we wanted to get back. This Fitchburg position opened up, and it worked out. So currently heading into my 4th year. This will be the longest I've ever been at one place. It's definitely an interesting time to ring in my kind of longest tenure, but 4th year, first full-time strength coach, brand new, 2 years old, varsity weight room, so it's been a good ride. I think I'm lucky to be now in a position where I think I have a lot more stability than a lot of people, and I can have probably as good of a work-life balance as any strength coach can have. So feel really fortunate about that, and looking forward to getting back here in a couple weeks after a very long time away.
Yeah, that's great. And you have a really great background. I think you got a lot of great experiences there, I'm sure, from a lot of awesome coaches along your way. And I think we mentioned before we started recording here that you started that program from scratch there at Fitchburg, correct? I mean, you're the first full-time.
So I'm the first full-timer. They had some grants, and they had some, they did some work with some exercise science professors doing some training and that type of thing. But yeah, I'm the first full-time funded through athletics position.
That's great. So one of the questions I like to ask, we've had a few other coaches kind of in that similar boat, is what culture have you decided and been able to create there, kind of going into year 4 as developing your own program, especially a program from scratch?
Yeah, so I think, obviously you have to kind of line up your culture with the different sports, and ultimately you hope that all of your teams have, a culture that is kind of united in your athletic department. But for us, it's really just, about accountability, I think, and hard work, and, coming from a point where there were no strength coaches to now it's just kind of, it's you come to Fitchburg State and you're going to play a sport where you're going to train in the weight room and you're going to be in the strength program. I think that it's a lot of working together. It's myself and Dr. Jeff Godin are really the two of us to kind of head the program, and we work with all 17 of our teams, and there's a lot of support within the department for one team supporting another. So just kind of everybody being on the same page. We have a phrase that we use in the department. It's 17 sports, one team, and just kind of reflecting that in the weight room. And from really the day that I started, everybody has been kind of all in, and really receptive to what we're doing. I'll tell you, we didn't have the facility we're in now. We were in the recreation center and kind of the general student weight room, and Brad, the guy that runs that, is our rec director. He was, pretty accommodating for us, but it was like a room the size of my garage with 2 double-sided racks kind of jammed in the corner. We had a run of dumbbells. We had a leg press, a decline bench, a preacher curl. And I said, what are we going to do in here? But I think that like ultimately that helped us a lot, because we were able to build it. Like if we could build buy-in with kind of what we were doing in that room with that space, and once we got into, the new facility with team builder and gym aware and turf and all that stuff, the buy-in would kind of come. I really give a lot of credit to those off-season teams that the teams that were in their off-season. My first fall, so it would have been, softball, lacrosse, baseball, really kind of laying the foundation for where we were, because I think you come in as a new coach with an in-season team, it's a little bit of a challenge, and you're just kind of riding it out through the in-season. But we use those in the winter sports too. Women's basketball, men's basketball, ice hockey. We're huge in kind of getting our program off the ground, and it was tough going through it in that facility, trying to manage, what we were doing and what I wanted to do. But like I said, I think if you can get them to believe in what you're doing in there, then all the bells and whistles make it a little bit easier when you get there.
I love the 17 sports, one team. I think that's it just speaks to your culture, and I think that's a great model to have, and just makes everything much better. You're not fighting team to team. Everybody's on the same page. That's huge.
And we have like coaches that pop in when their team is lifting, or just, during the day. And like our hockey coach comes in every day when he stops, because we're right across the street right across the parking lot from the arena. And he asks, about his kids, and then he says, how's the baseball team doing? How's that pitcher doing? So there's a lot of that. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's a sign of a really healthy athletic department is what that sounds like to me. So that's great. So you mentioned you got 17 sports there. How many athletes do you think? Probably 300, 400 plus?
We're in like the mid 300s.
Okay.
We have a number of dual sport athletes, which I really didn't have anywhere else that I've been.
Right. And you mentioned just kind of two of you doing that. So you got to be, I'm assuming, using some type of resources or tools that are kind of helping you plug away there. Has you found anything that's really been super beneficial for how you kind of operate?
I mean, I think, it's obviously one of your sponsors, but Team Builder has been huge for us, in getting kind of coordination, especially in over breaks with take-home packets and take-home workouts for winter and summer. But, I think that their value has really, really shown through, during these past few months when we had to get all these different options for workouts out to people, and we had to make sure they had videos, and being able to communicate kind of in mass with an entire group and make sure the coaches can see it. They have been a huge asset for us. And I think going forward, as we get into the fall, we have been kind of, for the past 3 years, like a combination of Team Builder and Excel sheets. And now the Excel sheet and the golf pencil are going to be kind of axed, so we are going to be strictly Team Builder. And I think that, like you were talking about in the intro, being able to be adaptable and adjust where, say someone has to quarantine for 2 weeks and then they have to get back, we can make those individual adjustments. So they've been huge. We still do use Excel, but like I said, I think it's going to be kind of an afterthought now. And other resources are just kind of each other, when Jeff and I will have teams in at the same time, coordinating with, we have 2 full sets of dumbbells and we have power blocks, and making sure like we'll use this area for warm up, we'll use that area, and just kind of bouncing ideas off each other in that regard.
That's great. That's great, because I want to expand on the Team Builder thing. And again, not just to keep pushing them because they're a sponsor, but I was just talking to another coach earlier today, and he was going through kind of a scenario that they're going through right now. Is they got some kids with symptoms, so that particular group has to quarantine for right now. It's like 48 hours just to wait on the test. So they're going to miss their big squat day. It's on a 3-week cycle, so they got to squat last week, but this week they didn't, and then they missed their hang clean day 2 weeks ago. So by week 3, you're like, they've squatted twice, they've hang cleaned once, they've bench pressed all 3 times. So it's like everybody's on it's just a mess. So what Team Builder will allow you to do is just copy, paste, delete, move crap around so easy that if you have a workout card, you're just throwing that thing away. I mean, you're just
Right.
probably writing it up on the whiteboard at that point. But I think if they aren't already, this type of model is just going to be the future, and you just need to push towards it, is just my opinion on it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think the other thing that I think is awesome about Team Builder in that group is, they're super adaptable and they're super receptive to feedback. You know what I mean? Like I've had questions and, you reach out and you get an answer right away, or, they just made some changes, I think, with the programming of agility drills and
Yeah.
sets and reps and, the different the rest intervals that you can program. And, they listen to the coaches and adjust as, they deem necessary, and their kind of consumer crowd, I guess. It's not just, well, this is the way our software works, so, you have to adapt. They're adapting it to their customer, and, I think that it's huge. And like I said, it's going to be, excuse me, a huge thing for us going forward.
Oh, absolutely. I've been on it for 3 years now, and it just keeps getting better. And that new agility update they did has been huge.
Mm-hmm.
Coach, how about like funding? I don't know how much of a budget you have. You don't have to share, but you kind of mentioned you got a decent setup. It sounds like some good equipment, and Team Builder costs money. So, are you doing anything from like a fundraising standpoint for your department?
So we are not. We had some plans to start some fundraising, I think, in the next year or two. We have a small budget through athletics, but then, we're basically partnered up with our exercise and sports science department. And that's where Jeff is a huge resource for us. And, we can kind of double things up. Like, we're going to use these for athletics, but they're also going to be used in a strength and conditioning lab to prepare our students for going out into grad school or into coaching. So, we have Team Builder, we have 4 gym aware units, we have a first beat heart rate system. There were other things that we were talking about getting. Obviously, COVID has wreaked some havoc on some budgets, so we'll see where we're at with that. But yeah, we try to get creative with it. And the thing that we have started doing, and me especially, I can be impulsive when, something feels like I want to buy it, is kind of stepping back and waiting a month or two. Like, do we really need this? Will this fit in our program? And will this stay in our program? We've there's been some things that we've purchased that, like, I guess was a kind of a phase, if that makes sense. Like, I was really excited about using them for a little bit, and then they, you kind of forget about them as you go through the year. So we kind of step back, and it's like they tell you to do if you want to write a nasty email. Like, write it, put it in your outbox, and then don't send it until the next day. And you usually don't end up sending it. So, like, I'll see something and want to get it, and then give it a week, and, well, maybe this isn't the best thing for us to buy at this time for all of our teams long term. So, it's not a huge budget. We make it work. The school's been really good about outfit. Like, we have specialty bars now at every rack. We have a elite FTS football bar. We have a safety squat bar. We have a trap bar. We have a Rogue Ohio bar at every rack for our, general strength work. So they've been really good about not just the facility, but helping us kind of outfit it. And we have a good space. It's pretty big. It's better than a lot of schools at our level, I think, have. And, just trying to outfit it as best we can.
I think your do I need this and will it stay is a huge thing, especially if you're, when I took over my department, I was super young, still am pretty young. I have no idea how to run a budget or what to order. And it can be so easy just to go read that article and like, oh, we have to have that. And then try to go buy it. And I think was another point with that is you don't want to burn a bunch of bridges with the people who are approving those purchases.
Yeah.
So if you always going with them with these like super expensive things that are kind of knick-knacky or whatever it is, and they're constantly have to turn you down. If you go to them, you better have a really good reason for going to them. And I've been lucky, I think, from that point that I too will be pretty impulsive, but just our schools can be slow to process things. So it kind of makes me slow down a little bit. So I think that's a really valuable point you made there. Just slow down, maybe wait a week, make sure you still want it. Cause you don't want to always just burn bridges, especially from an administration standpoint, on buying things that you may or may not use moving forward. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and it's like, do we want this right now because I saw so-and-so do it and I think it would have some value for us, or should we save our last couple $100 because we know in 3 months all of our 1-inch bands are going to need to be replaced, and
Right.
like our 1-inch bands get used by everybody in every group every day of the week. So,
Right.
Where's the value in our dollar?
Yeah, great point. How about, Coach? I'm sure you've had all kinds of hurdles to jump over, and we all do with the COVID period right now, obviously, as well. But anything in mind in particular you want to discuss? Just maybe a challenge you've had, whether right now at Fitchburg or somewhere else that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, there've been a lot. I think one of the challenges that you always have, I think, no matter where you are, is dealing and interacting in your relationship with sport coaches. Um, I've had a lot of really successful ones, and I've had some not so successful ones. And fortunately, I think the not so successful ones were towards the earlier part of my career. When I was younger, and I think that as I've gotten a little bit older and coached longer and had my own kids, it's really kind of allowed me to take a step back and looking back at some of those issues that I've had with coaches. It's always, I think it comes down to like being too emotional and too tied to, what you're doing and putting. Not that I don't place value on what I'm doing. Obviously, I do, but being willing to adapt and understand that, this coach has their team in mind and that's it. And, on our end, we're looking at the big picture of the entire department, but we also have to be willing to do everything we can to meet this coach's needs and their program's needs. So I don't know, like Jocko Willink has a great quote. It's one of my favorites. Like, no one has ever made a good decision while emotional or something like that. And I think learning how to kind of step back and disengage I think it's along the same lines as the budget thing, right? Like, take a breath, relax, figure out, where everybody's coming from. And I think that just being willing to have the conversations a little bit more and open to other ideas, like I said, as I've gotten older and I think a little bit more mature, I guess would be the right word. I don't know, it's something that I think I take a lot of pride in being able to work with different coaches now and finding ways to meet their needs and, still not compromising the core of what we do, but being a little bit more adaptable and, willing to.
No, I think that's another great point. Just as I'm kind of going through some similar things now too, because we've had a lot of staff turnover with our coaches at Jewel, and when you bring new coaches in, typically it's because that program hasn't been successful. So I think a lot of coaches, there's a tendency when they're entering not a very successful program is to kind of look at everything with a very critical eye, and not that they shouldn't, they probably should. But for me, I found myself just kind of fighting that like emotional, like just like being super defensive about like you coming in here and telling me what we're doing sucks, something, not that they are, but it can be taken that way sometimes.
Yeah.
And just to be able to pause and say, you know what, they're making some good points here. We could adjust that or whatever. But also making sure they understand the context of what you've been doing as well, I think is an important point. So a question I have with you on the sport coach side is, starting there at Fitchburg, being kind of like the first coach to really start a department, did you have any pushback from sport coaches of like not necessarily knowing how to use you maybe, or like what kind of your value is?
Yeah, there was definitely some of that. For the most part, everybody was just, we're just really excited to have you. What should we do? But there's kind of the traditional that you get with certain sports. I think everywhere, like, oh, we don't want to we don't want to lift in season because our legs will be heavy, or we don't want to be tired if we're lifting in season. So, and again, that goes back to kind of growing as a coach. At 25, I would have been, well, what are you talking about? That's the most insane thing I've ever heard. And a completely emotional reaction. Now at, almost 32, it's, well, hey, let's actually talk about this and figure out, why, what has kind of led you to think this. If you've had experiences where, maybe that did happen, or you've seen, bigger programs or professional programs say that, let's talk about it, and let's explain to you what we're actually doing. I think a lot of times sport coaches, and like our coaches, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 full-time head coaches. That's it, out of our 17 programs. So it's not even like it's just, they've never really thought about it before. They just kind of think the weight room is, they come in and we beat the kids down every time, and it's the hardest thing they could possibly do every time. So, educating them on like what we're doing in season isn't like, we're not going to affect them. And we did it successfully with hockey. They had been training after practice, for however long prior to me getting there, and we kept it for my first 2 years. And then at the end of that second season, I was meeting with our head coach. What do you think about this? We're going to move lift to pre-practice. And he had the initial concerns of like, well, they're going to be too tired on the ice. Coach, let me tell you, like, what we do in lift is going to affect them on the ice way less than what you do on the ice affects them in lift. Like, I can't do anything productive when they come in on Monday night after skating for 2 hours.
Right.
So just kind of educating and being willing to talk and hear their side, like I said, not to keep harping on that, but being willing to hear their side, and like, maybe I don't have every answer, and I'm not seeing every kind of side of this scenario. So, listening.
Oh yeah, listening. That's the thing. Listening. I love it, man. That's great. Great points. Let's switch the tone a little bit. So let's go more training now. What's like your training philosophy or principles, or however you want to answer that question? It's kind of a big question, and you get kind of however you want to answer it. How are you training your athletes?
We are kind of all over the place with everything. I think the thing about a small Division III school, we have kids who come in who have been training for 5 years, with qualified coaches. Like our hockey team is a prime example of that. They all play junior hockey, so they've all been working with, or most of them have been working with a strength coach, for 2 or 3 years at least before they get to us. And with them, we've followed kind of like a traditional triphasic type of setup where we're doing a lot of French contrast work in the preseason. I think that's really good for getting them ready to go on the ice, and we'll kind of follow those blocks throughout the season. We do a lot of like, it's triphasic type principles in with all of our teams, because I think that that tempo work has a lot of value for people who don't have a lot of training experience, and getting them some time under the bar. We kind of wrap it in with a tier system. I think like triphasic training and his kind of modified undulation in the week fits really well with a traditional tier system with like your total lower upper. Kind of the way, if you're emphasizing your leg training, the way that those two systems flow together has worked really well for us. But like, if you were to come in and look at our card for men's cross country and baseball, the card is going to be exactly the same, but on where baseball is front squatting, maybe men's cross country is Zercher squatting has been a huge one for them, or we started with goblet squatting or trap bar deadlifting. Baseball's doing pull-ups and women's cross country is doing pull down. So it's all like, the block is the same, the template is the same, the specific exercise we're using there is determined by the team. And that's like, we get the sport specific question a lot from our coaches. And, we're not going to be sport specific outside of like, I ask them, do you want your kids to be faster? Yes. Do you want them to be durable? Yes. Do you want them to be in good shape? Yes. Okay, then we're doing a sports specific program for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and then we just pick, like I said, maybe everybody's going to double leg push as our first exercise on day 2. Football, safety bar squatting, hockey's trap bar deadlifting, baseball's front squatting, cross country's goblet squatting. You know what I mean? And that, I think it's really effective, and it's really simple for us. But with our model, and it's the 2 of us writing programs, that's kind of how we have to be as well. And could we potentially get a little bit more specific as our staff grows? Maybe, but it's been working for us. And the other thing that kind of throws us off is, like, we're Division III, so everybody goes home at the beginning of May, and we don't see them again. If they're a winter or spring sport, we don't see them again until like the second week of September. So we're almost starting over at the start of every school year. So we'll spend a week or 2 weeks, just goblet squatting everybody, inverted rowing everybody, lunge holds, that type of thing before we get into it. But yeah, I don't know. Our system is like a tier, triphasic, undulating, all over, whatever works for us at that time with that group. We draw from everything. We Olympic lift. Pretty much football and track right now are the only ones, were the only ones Olympic lifting. We do both double leg and single leg pushing. I know, like, you're supposed to pick one side or the other, but we do both. So I don't know, it's working.
Yeah. Well, I love your setup, and I'd say we're probably pretty similar here. And it's just, when you're talking about, you look at that card, you'd probably say the same thing about ours. It's all very similar. I mean, and there's multiple reasons for that, but talk about the level of athlete you're working with, just your staff and all that, to be able to use the tier system. Everybody's squatting that day, and it might look 14 different ways, but it's all pretty similar. It's just funny to get the athletes to understand that. I think is a challenge, because we do these surveys at the end of the year. I had a freshman football player comment that, he doesn't know what he's doing because all the teams do similar workouts. I was like, yeah, they do. And I have explained it to you why we do that, but you weren't listening that day or whatever. He's commenting that the golf team's squatting. He doesn't think the golf team should have to squat. It's like, why are you my football player talking about the golf program? But anyway, it's a different story. But I think just having that system and having everybody master the basics with the level of athlete that we're working with, I think is very effective. Like you said, maybe if we had more staff, or if we're working with those athletes that Alabama's getting, maybe we're doing different stuff. But mastering the basics kind of sounds like what you're kind of accomplished there, and I'm 100% on board with you.
Yeah, and I think it gets talked about a lot, but like the art side, I guess, of the coaching, and I think a lot, like, we've had some of that too, where like, well, why is the women's lacrosse team doing like the same workout as us? Well, guess what? Like, you play basketball, and you also have to change direction and run up and down and transition from defense to offense and get out on the break. Like, they're doing the same thing. And in reality, the lacrosse team has probably been training longer than you, so they may be even more advanced. But, I think that we're at a point now where we don't get a ton of those questions. And I think it goes back to like that time in the rec center. And, we were partnered up with Merrimack, where I worked before, and we were going to be getting graduate assistants this year, where they'd be going to school at Merrimack and working with us. With the current situation, it doesn't look like that's going to happen for the fall. But one of the things that we were going to, kind of stress to them is, and I think it's something that we stress a lot going back to the 17 sports, one team, is, every single one of our programs has more than one coach on the floor. You know what I mean? Every single one of our programs, all those kids get a sheet. We have 4 flat screen TVs. Everybody has a PowerPoint. Like, when, track comes in, they have the men's track, Tuesday, April 4th, PowerPoint up on the TV. It corresponds with their sheet. Football has a PowerPoint in the sheet. Hockey has a PowerPoint in the sheet. Soccer has a PowerPoint in the sheet. So just doing all those little things, I think that show every team that they're important, and getting we're fortunate to have a lot of volunteers and interns through our exercise science department. We don't just save the interns and the volunteers for football or for hockey or for baseball or for our big teams. It's me and one or two interns for men's track and men's cross country. It's me and Jeff and two or three interns for hockey. So everybody gets coached really hard. Everybody is important to us. And I think, again, going back to this growth, and not to keep harping on it, it's just with all this downtime, I've been thinking about it a lot. Like, I think that may have led to some struggles that I've come up at other places where like I took over football at Merrimack at 24 years old. It was division. It wasn't, I wasn't at Ohio State, but it was good football. It was scholarship level football. And, I think that I got a little bit into myself being in charge of football. And I think that it hurt my relationships with some of the other teams that I had previously built good relationships with. And, being able to have this, it's, our interns, and what I would tell our GAs is, every team is the most important team you train, and you have to, it doesn't matter. Like, if you want to be a football guy, then, when you go out with women swimming and diving, pretend you're training football, make them the most important thing that you're doing. I think that I'm lucky to have learned that. I think I wish I could have learned it earlier, but it is what it is, I guess.
And I think you mentioned Jocko earlier. So another one of Jocko's things is like dichotomies. So as you're talking about that, I was thinking about, when, with the programming thing, a lot of it's the same, but there's a dichotomy in that where it can't be all the same. You've got to find ways, like you said there, to make sure that team knows that they are important. That what I say when people ask me that question, probably like 80-85% of your program's the same. But, it's that 10 to 15% that's different, whether that's in the programming itself or, like you said, every team, that it's men's soccer's in there, whoever, they have their stuff on the board. Like, they know that you do care about them, and it's not just one program for everybody, but there is different. You're making them feel special in a way.
Yeah.
There's that dichotomy to where there's a lot of similarity, but it's not all similar. There has to be some change. It's just it's an interesting battle.
The other thing I think that, and it may seem like a really little thing, but like we have some sports have a little bit better gear budget, so we get some gear from some sports, but like we don't wear a football t-shirt to the baseball lift, and we don't wear a hockey t-shirt to the track lift. You know what I mean? Like, we'll wear those t-shirts if it's just that group in the afternoon or when we're lifting ourselves, but it's generic Fitchburg State gear, or it's strength and conditioning gear, and I've made that mistake in the past where, like, I'll show up to I showed up to a women's lacrosse workout my first year in the morning with a hockey sweatshirt on. They're like, "What is that? Get rid of that." All right, my bad. So just little things like that, like I have a cross country shirt that they gave me, and it doesn't really fit, but I still wear it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I don't know. It's just the making them understand their importance is a huge part. And, I think once they know that they're a priority for you, everything else is going to be so much easier.
Yeah.
The questions they would say, "Why are we doing this?" And I'd be like, "What do you mean, why are we doing this? I'm the coach. I'm telling you to do this. That's why we're doing it." Now, like, I love those questions. Like, they're engaged in what we're doing. I could talk to you about it all day. We try to tell our staff to, like, tie it in to what they're doing, tie it into, we Zercher squat and Zercher lunge with cross country. Hey, this is going to, help you keep a little bit better posture when you're running, and, stay a little bit more upright, or whatever you're looking to do as you get tired. And it's still going to allow us to really load your legs without, stressing you out, and making sure you can still go run. So,
right.
That type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another great point there, Coach. And I want to talk a little bit too about, we've all had all kinds of time to just kind of sit and think over the last few months. Like, what's your vision? Where are you taking your program to? Like, what's next for you guys?
Yeah, so hopefully, we are back in a somewhat normal capacity. I think that, the partnership with Merrimack is something we're really excited about. And, I talked about it a little bit, but it's a 1-year program at Merrimack. There'll be all of the academic stuff stuff. That's very academic. Goes on through them. They take class there, and then they will be 20 hours of coaching with us. And our kind of vision for that is, they're going to be a graduate fellow, but they're going to kind of be a full-time assistant. We want them to be in charge of a few teams, and then they'll help with some of our bigger teams. But I think that, the being in charge of a few teams as a GA is huge, and having the responsibility of communicating with the coaches, communicating with sports med, dealing with the athletes on the floor, writing the program, and understanding, how the program fits into your room and your equipment and your ability as a coach is, really things that you can only learn by doing them. We've had 2 interns go on into the Merrimack graduate program, and they've had a great experience. And, we were really excited about it. Like I said, it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year, but, if anybody listening is interested, we'll talk to you, because Merrimack partners with a lot of schools in our area, and a lot of them are big name schools. And, we don't have kind of the name recognition, but I think that our experience in kind of really preparing for what the day-to-day, life of a college strength coach is going to be, I think second to none. So I think it'll be a great experience for them.
Yeah. I was a GA at a D2 level, and there's no better experience. Just the experience of, in that small school setting, having to deal with all those teams. Like you said, golf was one of my teams at Northwest Missouri State, and that was my team. And I learned so much about just all that stuff we've already talked about in this episode, just by, taking on that team. So yeah, if any listeners, reach out to Coach here. He's
no doubt.
People, that's good.
But I think going back to the question, like the vision for our program, it's kind of twofold. Like, one, Jeff and I talk about it, and we kind of want to, and, I don't know what everybody does across the country, but I know in New England, we're pretty unique in what we're doing, and we kind of want to be like the model or the gold standard for, what Division III strength and conditioning can be. And I think that, obviously Springfield does a great job with what they do there. And, there are some other schools that have gotten full-time coaches. And, I think we really just want to help to advance kind of the Division III model. And I think with everything in the NCAA, it's a trickle down. And, I think almost every Division II school has a strength coach now or a strength staff. And, Division III is hopefully going to catch up. So, that's kind of one side of it. And then be a place where, again, going back to Springfield, they're putting out all of the graduate assistant strength coaches, and kind of modeling that after undergrad, where, we're preparing our students, student athletes, hopefully through our program and through practicum and internship with us, to go out and be successful GAs and successful, full-time coaches. So I guess that would be, long-term where we are.
That's awesome. Those are huge goals, and that's great, Coach. How about something that maybe you yourself is looking to improve upon or learn as a coach here, or maybe you have been digging into recently?
So I think that change of direction work is something that's always, interesting to me. And I think that the coaches versus COVID event, the Matt Gildersleeve up at Buffalo, his presentation on kind of the different dynamics and change of direction, and really kind of expanding what we're able to do there. In terms of like the X's and O's, that's something that I'm really like. I think I'm pretty good in the weight room. I'm pretty good with linear speed. I think that, change of direction, like a lot of times our change of direction work will be, the cone drills that you're not supposed to do, I guess, anymore. And then just progressing into like me pointing or me yelling, but really kind of diving in and understanding the techniques and the cues for, improving change of direction as we get further along in our program and kids are getting stronger, and, their linear speed is kind of developing to a point where we can maybe focus on some more of those details. So, learning that, for me, long term, I kind of see some shift towards administration. I was lucky enough to just finish my MBA through Fitchburg, and I had some conversations with our ID about, doing some things to kind of gear towards there and, long term move. I don't know, maybe uh, being an athletic director or some sort of senior associate position, but, kind of understanding the administration of, the whole department outside of our little weight room bubble and, all of the different things that go into that are, you know, again, I've gotten older, those things have become more interesting and kind of more of a draw, for me.
Well, I think there's going to be more and more strength coaches kind of move that way. I think that's a great point. I mean, because we're the central hub of the entire athletic department a lot of the time. So it just seems natural to me that when coaches like you are equipped to handle some of that administrative type duties, that you get thrown in there and would be a perfect fit for us. That's great. I think that's something I thought of myself. I haven't made any trek towards that whatsoever, but I think that's great.
Yeah, I think like you said, we're like the central hub. Like the kids come and talk to us about, coaches or school or whatever, and the coaches come and vent to us about who knows what, and administrators talk to us about this, and the athletic trainers talk to us about that, and it's all kind of, and I'm sure they do it amongst other groups too, but I feel like the weight room office is like a sanctuary in most athletic departments. Like, come in, shut the door. What do we got to talk about?
Right.
All right, we're all good now. Let's get back to it. That's what we like tell our young coaches too. Like at times, and I think this was a problem for me, which led to some, kind of growing problems where like I would keep frustrations just like bottled up, and then if you don't let them out, what's going to happen? Eventually, they're going to erupt. So we tell them, you got to vent about, a kid not following your directions or a coach like not getting what you're telling them. Come in, shut the door. Let's talk about it. Let's vent. Let's do whatever we need to do. All right, good. Our half hour is up. Let's get back to work and, and be a professional.
Yeah, no, that's great. Sometimes the central hub isn't so great, like during COVID, where you're the central hub, you see every single athlete. But that's all right. How about what are some of your like development resources you really liked throughout your development as a coach that you might recommend for coaches?
I mean, I think just the internet, man, is great. And, I think we talked about it during our initial conversation to set this up. I am taking a kind of a summer social media deload. It got to a point at the end of the spring where I was just kind of exhausted with the whole thing. But I think if there's a lot of noise on social media, but I think if you do it right, there's an immense value to Instagram, to Twitter. There are a lot of really good coaches putting out a lot of really good content, and if you can kind of sift through the weeds and get that's I think one of the go-tos. And that being said, I don't think it can replace like the going to a clinic and introducing yourself and sitting in the front row and asking a question of a really experienced, qualified coach. And, beyond that, like, hey, I really enjoyed your presentation. Can I come check out what you guys are doing? I think we can get lost in like the Instagram and Twitter. And that's kind of why I shut it off for the summer and, making more phone calls and trying to get out and see more people and, just get out of that 6-inch screen. I think that's huge. Like we were at the Holy Cross sports performance symposium a few months ago. Feels like a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And there were a couple kids that like they were current GAs at Merrimack came up and introduced themselves to me and just talked about it and expressed some interest in maybe coming out to see what we're doing at some point. It's like, wow, that was kind of nice. It doesn't happen a lot, so just getting out there and all I think the traditional books like periodization and the coach's strength training playbook, the system, the system is a really good one. Buddy Morris's American Football Physical Preparation, I think, has been huge in kind of driving what we're doing, especially in the off season with football. But all those books, but again, don't get lost in, this is what the book says, this is what we're going to do. You have to adapt to, your room and your ability and your kids. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Coach, this has been great. Really appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck to you as you move forward here in a couple weeks, getting back on campus. And I'm excited about that. So I want to finish with just 4 quick ones, kind of fun ones we'll finish with, and then we'll we'll wrap it up. So the first one I got for you, I like to ask this one is, what's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you while coaching?
Oh boy, there have been. I would say probably, and it's happened more than once, which is even more embarrassing to say. But like, I'll be backing up to blow a whistle or like see the bigger picture, and I'll like trip over a bench or box behind me, and just like go straight down, and like now I just sit there, like I don't get up for 5 minutes, and I just
Right.
coach from there. Like, all right, well I'm here, I might
Yeah.
as well enjoy the view for a few minutes. So, that's
a
up
great
there.
one. That's a good one.
That's up there.
I've done the same thing, except we had a volleyball girl that was laying down. She was doing dead bugs or something. She was on the floor, and I was just back walking and just like kicked her right in the face while she was on the ground. So that's one of mine. It's pretty good.
The other one, I was an assistant at the time at Delaware, and we had a group in, and we were doing overhead press, and I got called on to demonstrate the overhead press. And I am a like historically bad presser, like in any plane, it doesn't matter. Like I'm just not good at it. So like we're at this rack, and our head guy says, Jim, demonstrate this. And I look at the bar and I look at him, I'm like, dude, this is like what my 1 RM on this. Like, what are we doing? So like I like kind of grind it out and make it work. But that was like, come on, really?
Yeah, it's tough. What's your best piece of coaching advice you've ever received?
I think that I don't know if it's coaching advice, but advice for related to the field is learn something from every situation that you're in. I think that is huge, and keeping an open mind and understanding. I don't have all the answers. There's got to be a reason that they're doing it this way. Hopefully there's a reason that they're doing it this way. Let's find out. Let's see what we can absorb, and bring back to us. And, along those same lines, just because you saw something doesn't mean it's the right thing for your program and your kids at that time. So be able to, kind of absorb, modify, and implement it into your program in the right way.
Yeah, that's great. How about favorite office snack?
Probably trail mix.
There you go. Yeah, me too.
Coffee.
That's
Trail
good.
mix and coffee.
There you go. All right, last one, Coach, is maybe a small school strength coach that that deserves a shout out. Thinks does a great job.
Yeah, I think Bob Donahue out at Nichols does a really good job. He was a graduate assistant up at Merrimack, and he's taken over that program there. And from what I can gather from social media, he's doing a real good job, and they're pretty local to us. So, trying to build this Division III network around us.
Right. Awesome, Coach. Well, again, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day and from your family to join us on the podcast. And like Coach said, if anybody's listening to this and is interested in GA positions or whatever, or just wanting to get to know Coach a little bit more and pick his brain a little bit, I'll have his information in the show notes to reach out to him. But Coach, good luck as you get back to work here in a couple weeks, figuring everything out. And I hope that you and your family stay safe and healthy and all that too. So I really appreciate the time.
Thank you. You too. All right. Yeah, this was fun. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet.